Hello, and welcome to the Delicious Recipe here on UPRN 107.7 FM, New Orleans Talk Radio. And tonight's show was, I believe it was called Nothing Bundt Cakes. But I'm waiting for my other guest to arrive, and I'm not sure what time he's working on there, anyways. But I have my significant other filling in for me for the time being. What's
Good thing
going
we
on?
do this for each other.
Yeah, that's true. Yes. So, what the show was going to be about there tonight? There is when he does arrive, hopefully, it's talking about a topic that we've been discussing on my show there for a long time there on the Delicious Recipe about ancient lore, tribal mysticism, old stories, and stuff like that. And I met this guy last night, and and we talked about this many times. There's that a lot of people that I've come across talking in native culture here in Canada. They don't talk much about Sasquatch or hairy people or those ones out there. They talk about the little ones, and I've had I'll butcher his name, Q, Kitovichik Lichard from Xeno Hunters, that you can watch his YouTube channel there, and about stories about these little people. D. Macaulay talking about the little people. That's just outside of Thunder Bay, Nipigon area. And my guest, if he does show up here later on, up at Muskrat Dam, which is close to the northern part of Ontario Manitoba border. And this is something that is widely talked about in the mysticism and lore and stuff like that about people out there in the bush, that people that live out there, and about these little people. And this is a thing that I always find surprising about this, is that these people are great hunters, trackers, and when something is different that isn't a regular animal, and I know that a lot of stories and stuff like that, oh, you just mistake it for a bear. Oh, it's a bear standing up on its legs. Yeah, but bear on its hind legs don't run at 40 miles an hour through the bush. So you really have to sort of think about, like, these are like skilled trackers and hunters and stuff like that. And if my guest does show up there later on, because I'll tell some of the stories he told me last night, and they're really, really interesting. So, Laura, have you, in the meantime here, have you come across any people that you've been talking to about weird experiences in the bush or weird experiences out in nature that can't be explained, that aren't regular animals?
Hi, everybody. I'm Laura Lee Potman, Dell's significant other. And the question, geez, we could do a whole show, Dell, just on this. Have I heard about it? Well, what I've been saying to people, and then I'll tell you why I've said this, is I never, ever, ever thought I would be having a conversation with you about little people, fairies, things like that. Now, have I heard about very strange experiences in the bush from people? Absolutely. I have experienced strange things with little people when I was way in Colorado quite a few years ago. I had gone to a conference with a group from Facebook I'm no longer associated with, and there was this fairy house. It was called the Fairy House, and you see those, they're actually becoming quite popular, which is interesting that they are. And they're usually just like little bird houses or whatever. But this one, I don't think I've ever told you this story. This one was like a big giant rock, and it hadn't been disturbed. There was a bunch of plants all around it, what have you. And it looked like it was kind of covered all in spider webs. And it had just rained, so you could see all the dew on them. But when we examined it more closely and we went around the back of this, and this was a pretty rural area where we were staying for the conference. Anyways, you could see right close to the ground there was a like a break in the spider webs. It looked like there was a hole. So we had this bright idea, being with a bunch of light worker woo woo people, as we refer to sometimes in the light worker world, very astrally connected, if you will. Why don't we grab a crystal and see what happens? Why don't we leave them something shiny, a gift? And there was also a spider there too that acted very strangely. It was almost like it was guarding this door. It was so weird. Anyways, long story short, one of the people I was with grabbed a very long quartz crystal and we very, very carefully fed it into the hole in the webs and went to put it, because there was a hole, like it looked like going down into the ground under this rock. That's basically what this fairy house was. I kid you not, and there were witnesses to this. As we went to feed the crystal in, I was the one doing it. Something, I knew we didn't see what it was. It was like something grabbed it and sucked it right in. It was gone. It was gone. So, did we see any fairies? I know you're laughing. You're going, yeah, right. It did happen. I wasn't the only one there. Like I said, there was about 10 of us that seen this. But where we were too, and of course I was doing a show at this time with this group, and I had to do my show, and I kept hearing all this yelling outside the window. People were taking pictures of these UFOs. Now, again, were the UFOs? I don't know. They were unidentified, whatever they were, and they were acting really strange, all these lights. And then they just all of a sudden stopped and went right up into this sky. So, was it the energy? Was it the place where we were at? Was it strange activity? But the one thing I want to say to you is I have not heard what you were telling me about after your conversation with this gentleman you're going to have on this evening, that most First Nations or Indigenous people I've spoken to, no, they don't go on and on about Bigfoot or Sasquatch. But as I understand it, even the name Sasquatch came from one of the Indigenous tribes here. So I think it's a matter of where you live. But you said you've run into enough people that think that it's more about the little people, because I have heard about the little people and they all have different names depending on what tribe or reserve you speak to.
Hmm. Well,
Mhm.
that comes into really interesting there too, because next week there, people that are listening, we have Varla Ventura coming back on again there, with me and Lore, and we're talking about, and she's done several books about the fairy mystical lore, the goblins, gremlins, the little people as well, and she's looked into this stuff and how that culture has permeated
She's more
throughout.
from a Celtic type
Right.
background though. So
Mhm.
mhm.
Yeah, and then you have stories of Leif Erikson with the part of that people from Ice no, it's not Iceland, the Nordics coming
Mhm.
across there and dealing with the Skrillex, and there's stories about the man with the one big foot and the one arm, and that story also goes back and goes into a story and myth in India. China, India, close to there, like the old world in that, but it was brought over here. And then you have stories about this that you have to start to wonder. It said that this mysticism and lore that goes on there, and I know I'm going to use lore a lot of times there. I'll use lore,
Mhm. You can't
but the
remember how
thing,
to say my name. Yeah, I just tell
yeah,
people to call me
but
Laura.
but the thing is, always said, it's very interesting that this is something that goes through there, and it goes into these other stories too about why do indigenous cultures talk about shapeshifters, windwalkers, uh, wind talkers, little people, Bigfoot, hairy man. Why do they have there? Because you have to think about this, and this is being put in a part of perspective. There is that a lot of people that go out and hunt and go and track in the bush, they know what they're looking at. When they see something that is totally different than something there, and you can say, uh, they'll go, "Oh well, they're just uneducated. They don't know what they were looking at." No, they actually do know what animal they're going and hunting. And when something shows up and acts purely different than what a regular animal would, this is something like you have to you have to put that question out there. Is that maybe there is something out there? And now you have the question there. It says, okay, well, if there is this population of dogmen, hairy men, Sasquatch, little people, and stuff like that. What do they do? And now you get this question that comes into the whole part about mysticism and magic. That this is a big thing with the little people, is that they can make imprint thoughts and make you see something that isn't true. And I listened to this really interesting conversation that this native elder had there, and he says, yeah, and he goes out and teaches people out that basically a beginning of shamanism and stuff like that. And he says, I want you to look out in the trees. It says, do you see anything that's different? And everybody, it will, the conversation went, no, no. It says, did you notice that one of those was was Sasquatch, and they go, no. It says, well, they're able to shapeshift, right? And this is a part of conversation that goes through everything: shapeshifters, skinwalkers, fairy magic, everything like this. So I'm just wondering, and I'll ask you this question there. It says, what do you think your thoughts are about that, and why that might be a common theme that's going through there? Because this goes into religion as well, where sort of some type of magic is being used, miracles and magic.
Well, I think what it is, and we've sort of been led astray to believe anything like this. But first of all, and I teach this myself. I know you've heard me say this on my show, or even when I hold classes with people and stuff like that. Our thoughts, our words, and our emotions are some of the most powerful things out there. It's just energy going to a scientific basis of energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It can be transferred from one place to another. You even look at the word spelling, right? We're writing words out, or a spell, right? You either say the words or you can read them and write them out. Anything with an action kind of creates more energy, which gives it more power. Now, I also believe that we are capable of so much more. That's where I was going with this, what I teach people, than what we've ever been led to believe, or that we've ever even thought was possible. And you and I both had Paul Anthony Wallace on here, and he was talking a bit about this, that there may very well have been a human being 1.0 before. And we were talking about how after a head injury or maybe a coma or near death experience, excuse me, that people seem to wake up with these exceptional skills they never possessed before. There's a reason why I'm mentioning all this. So, with that being said, and we also know, we both talk about this on both of our shows and together, that history has been changed. And it usually only takes about 2 to 3 generations before the lies become the truth. And that's what people believe because they've been repeated enough. So, going back many centuries ago, and I've often said this too, that many of these myths, legends, and lore that exist of vampires, of giants, of leprechauns, of fairies, of dragons, of unicorns, there has to be some sort of truth to it. I believe that it's existed and been passed on from years to year. The last thing I was going to mention that kind of goes all hand in hand with this is I believe that magic is real. And I'm not talking about Walt Disney World floaty things in this, in the sky and colors of the wind or whatever song it is that he wants to sing with the whatever song that he's twisted into some lovely story that really wasn't. But magic does exist. I've seen people who believe in it, and alchemy. And that's where I start looking at this. Like, I have even seen a video, I've told you this before. It wasn't in English and it was on YouTube, and with the translation captions, he was talking about creating a homunculus. And he actually created something. Now, again, there was no cuts in the video. Did he have special things? Like, I know with you being very skeptical, could there have been a way for him to manipulate it? But this thing that he created with an egg, when he cracked it open, it was gross. It was alive. It kind of looked like a bloodsucker, like, what we would see, and it was moving and it was like stretching, and it didn't have arms and legs, but its mouth was, it was gross. It was a close up of it. But my whole point of sharing all this is that yes, I believe absolutely that we can create this. You even look at a tulpa. A tulpa is I know but for our listeners, that a certain area geographically of people talking enough and believing in it enough that you can create it. For example, creepy pasta with Thin Man. Now we're getting pictures and videos of Thin Man. That was actually just a scary story. So it can happen. We can create much more than what I think we ever believed we could.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Well, no, that's true. That's the amazing thing. That's why I'm always sort of amazed with when you're dealing with mysticism and lore and ancient stories that go through there. A lot of people will dismiss all this thing and, oh, well, they were just uneducated people. But this actually does bring forth a part of wondering about the world that's around us, right? And I'll just put this out there anyways, is that if you even look at the Torah, the Bible, Old Testament, stuff like that, they talk about giants, they talk about miracles, they talk about a type of sort of supernatural magic that did this. Like there was a part there where Jesus goes and 2 fish and a loaf of bread and feeds uh, thousands of people, right? And this is something that isn't there. You talk about the Jewish people, they were wandering the desert and manna from heaven, and they got food as they were
Yeah.
just dropped out of the sky, and they were able to be fed for the 40 years that they were out wandering the desert, right? So there's a lot of different things that are there, and this is where it comes into the interesting part. I'm gonna walk around here, there, folks, there,
Yeah.
as I'm looking to see if my guest is across the street or not. We'll see how good my connection goes here. But and this is an outdoor show. Maybe we'll see a little person somewhere around in maybe a sylph in these dandelion
I
flowers that are.
believe in those kind of things, and I always have.
Yeah.
That's why I say to people, I never thought I'd ever be having a conversation with you about fairies or little people.
Mm-hmm.
I believe in it because I've had that was just one, and I didn't get into the whole story of what I shared with you. I could tell by your face you didn't believe me, and you were dying to question many things about it. You probably will after the show. But there were other witnesses to this. And part of what we got to look at too is even what we've gone through the paranormal
Yeah.
ourselves as a couple through our last house. Would you ever have believed in a million years, had we not lived through what we did and some of the things that happened, or even still to this day, how they actually happen? You being thrown 15 feet across the room and you
Yeah.
thinking you didn't even tell me for 2 days. You were testing all the electrical on the fridge, thinking maybe that's what it was, or the bites, or the scratches, or the burn. I mean, there was so
Mm-hmm.
much. And how does that happen? We've been told that our whole lives that that doesn't exist. There's no such thing as
Right.
ghosts. There's a lot more out there than I think than we've ever been led to believe, including telepathy, like you said. That would be no big deal for little people to put thoughts in your mind, to whatever it could be. Giants, we've seen bones, like our
Mm-hmm.
moderator for Paranormal University on Facebook, she's in Sardinia. We watched a
Yeah.
documentary. Like, look at the bones they were finding, especially there in these giant tombs, and everything's been taken away and hidden. Why?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Why?
No, it's interesting there, and there's a lot of theories that are out there, and the thing is, though, is that this is what gets really interesting into the part there, is that you have independent people thinking that the Smithsonian might
Mhm.
have hidden stuff, and government, and you have an
I agree
agency.
with
We have that part that happened there with an alien ship that showed up at Falcon Lake, Manitoba area, or is it Eagle Lake or Falcon? I think it's
I think
Falcon Lake.
Falcon Lake. Hmm.
Yeah, and they came in there, and people actually got injured from this, whatever device this was. Now, you could say in one part there's that maybe it was a satellite that fell down with radiation. People got sick from this or got burnt from it. If that's true, well, disclose that, let that out there.
Yeah,
If it
why
was
hide
something,
it?
but the thing was interesting about the Falcon Lake incident was that the American government military rushed into Canada to go and close down the site and go and remove whatever was there.
Or
That's
aliens. We've
that's
had
that's a
apparently.
really weird thing there. And you have Paul Hillier, who was part of the government with the military, and said like, no, actually, we do have correspondence that's going on with some sort of uh, otherworldly, non-human people, and so
The
you have to.
military's been here before. Sorry, I guess I still have a bit of a delay. We know we tried to fix our internet, but the military's been here from the U.S. before to pick up different extraterrestrials and all kinds of stuff. Why are you hiding all this stuff?
Yeah,
Not
yeah,
you, but
yeah.
government.
But if you look at also to the part through, just not, don't worry about. I'm not going to say about the rest of the world, but just through North America, South America,
Hmm.
uh, re, just cultures talk about involvement with something that was not terrestrial human,
Yeah.
and something that was different. They talk about everything. They talk about little people. They talk about giants. They talk about sky people.
Mm.
You use whatever terms there is out there, and that's what's sort of interesting. That's what makes the delicious recipe so fun. We're just sort of looking at stuff. We're just looking at it and saying, hey, well, maybe there might be something more to this. And the powers that be, and I don't want to say cabal and government and military optics, so we have to go and black out stuff, but through history, there's millions and millions of books out there that say that there are something else different. Like you have even with the Nazis. The Nazis were going out and searching for uh, religious artifacts that could give them power to rule over people. They were looking for the Ark of the Covenant. They were looking for the Spear of Destiny, which is the spear tip that stabbed
Jesus.
Jesus in the side of the ribs when he was hung on the cross, and all. And the story goes, all it is that water came out because he was inside crying of tears. But if you hold this thing, and you have to wonder there too, is that did Hollywood take these stories to sort of dispel people on the part of the myths that, oh, it was just a made up story? But
Mm.
no, this is actually written in religious texts about
Yep.
this stuff. And
Mhm.
that you have to start thinking, going, hmm, do I stop asking questions and sort of not look at this, or just say this is all make believe Walt Disney stuff, right?
You know what? And again, we can't tell people what to think,
Mm-hmm.
and that's part of what your show is all about. But I believe that knowledge is empowering. I believe that nobody knows everything. We're just human. We make a lot of mistakes. And for myself, I'll say, in my humble opinion, that education should be continued throughout your lifetime. Always
Yeah,
learning something new, making it even a goal to learn at least one new thing every day, whether it's a new fact, a new bit of information. Always questioning is what I learned from you. And it's not going into something being suspicious or trying to prove it fake.
mm-hmm.
It's stepping back like there is no box, not even stepping outside the box, but
Mm-hmm.
taking a look at things and questioning why. Actually, I think we talked about this last night, but calling in all those questions: why, where, when, how, what,
Mm-hmm.
and asking that. And if it doesn't make sense and you're still not really sure, I call it the proverbial back shelf. I'll just stick it up in the back of my mind, because something will come into my field eventually that either supports it much more strongly or refutes it beyond a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah. So this is the whole part out of this whole thing. There is that, and I wish that Jared Nothing would have showed up here today. I just went and looked at the front there because he had some really interesting stories, and
Yeah, what you didn't really tell me, because I was going to listen tonight. So why don't you share some of them? Maybe we'll help him manifest by
oh,
talking about them, by sharing.
maybe I just walked across there. I see that the other vehicle's gone. I'm not sure if his mom would
Well,
do
all
it
I have to
or
do
not.
is just peek out the window for you. So hang on.
But
Nope.
what ended up happening was is that he told me one story. Well, he said that he had lots of stories, right?
Yeah.
And stuff that he was told through his lifetime as being a little kid. He's about 19, 20 years old there, and he's only in town for a little bit. And it was a really interesting story. I went outside to go and have a smoke, get some fresh air last night, and this guy starts shouting at me. And the thing that's sort of really interesting about this, I was thinking about for the 3 hours beforehand. It says, I don't have a guest for today's show. I says, I wonder who would be out there. It says, I got Varla coming up next week. I don't have anybody for tonight. And I says, I just wonder. And all of a sudden, this guy starts shouting at me at 3 o'clock in the morning as I'm outside having a smoke.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I thought he wanted to fight me. I thought he
Mhm.
was like, oh, yeah, fight. And I was like, this, and go, what are you talking about? I can't, because they just put the air conditioner in the front window. So I had the air conditioner going. I can barely hear what he was saying. And he's like, this goes, no, I just wanted to talk to somebody. I
Mhm.
says, really, eh? I says, and I go, oh, okay, well, that's great. And he goes, oh, he says, you look like you're Indian. And I says, oh, no. I says, my grandmother was Cree. I says, I'm like 1/8 or 1/4, I mean. And he's like, oh, yeah, I can tell by your hair. Yeah, you're and then he started opening up about stories. I didn't ask him to open up a story. He says, hey, you would be a great guest to be on my show. It's like,
Yeah.
can you go in? give some of these stories and stuff like that, because a lot of people I found during my 51 years being on here, especially when you're dealing with native people, because we even talked with my neighbor there too about stories, and that they don't even consider Sasquatch. They consider the little people as something of a story and something to be worried about. And so I asked him the same thing, and he's up Muskrat Dam. That's where he was from, up
Yeah.
where I said, and they said, "Oh yeah, they worry about these tricksters in the bush, these little small people." So I'll go into this part of the story that he told me. I probably won't do it justice, anyways. But what he was
Okay.
saying, that his dad, and he said his dad now has passed away, but his dad had told him a story. He was out cutting down a tree,
Right.
and there was a tree that was sort of semi sort of rotted, but it had a big huge hole through the center of it, and his dad was worried about where this tree would fall down and crush somebody and hurt or
Right.
do a building, stuff like that. So he, he took his axe and started cutting down this tree, and he got to a part in the tree. All of a sudden, this small hairy 2 foot tall creature ran out of the tree out of him. His
Mhm.
his dad left all the tools and that and just ran away. And
Booked it.
so I was wondering, I asked him a question. I says, did your dad say like maybe it was like a raccoon, maybe it was a ferret, maybe it was something that burrowed a hole, like because it wasn't a squirrel? Because he said no. He said what the height of this thing was. He says no, it ran on 2 legs and ran away
Yeah.
and cussed at him in a language like it was like he didn't understand, but like cussed, like if you would say the F word or the S word and stuff like that, but in some other language, it was like very aggressive and just yelling over his shoulder at him that that he had destroyed this house. And I was like, wow. I says, and he told me, he says, yeah, it says his dad was an avid hunter, fisherman, person of the woods, and this was something that was looked like a small little person that ran. It wasn't an animal, and because they would know these things, right? And this is the question, right? And I always have this real uh, weird sort of thinking that when people sort of say dismiss
Mhm.
this, well, when a hunter and stuff like that, they know what they're hunting. That's the basics in Ontario. To get your hunting license, you have to know what you're shooting before you shoot it. You don't just shoot at something blindly. And people that do this and do this for food and that, and this, they said, this looked like a little person, hairy, that he couldn't
Mhm.
couldn't shoot it. It was just
Yeah.
it ran away, and it ran on 2 legs. And so you have to sort of wonder, says, okay, well, what comes into the rest of the parts of the stories when they talk about little people and us as humanity infringing on their area, right?
Mhm.
Right, when you take over stuff, like there's talks about, okay, well, there's markers and stuff like that, about where Bigfoot sightings are, to stay, hey, you stay on this side, we'll be on this side, and never the twin should
Yeah.
meet, whatever. But when they sort of they cross like this, and you have to wonder, okay, well, there's a confrontation. So you, this comes into lots of different things. Like they say, okay, well, why has nobody found bones of this? Well, you don't know. There's a lot of questions out
I've
there.
seen
We
both.
we don't understand anything. We barely understand less than 10% of our oceans. We barely understand 10% of our land. Even with satellite technology, all it is just scanning outside areas. They're not fine detailing everything. You don't know. We only dig down our basement in our in our house only goes down 8 feet. There's still another 12 more miles of earth to
Yeah.
go down below that,
Or
right?
water underneath, like running water way below the
Yeah,
ground can affect things too. Yeah. Hmm.
yeah. But the mountain systems and stuff like that, there's so many stories about in mysticism and lore. Like even you go into the story of Gilgamesh and Enkidu, and where Gilgamesh, after Enkidu dies, he goes and goes through the whole of a mountain, and he travels for 12 days to get to where the lesser gods are there that
Hmm.
created humanity, and he goes down there because he wants to bring his friend back. And but he
Right.
travels for a long time there, and he goes over this underground sea and stuff like that. But if you're looking at this, as we're scanning, I'm going to say this again, is we're scanning, we're looking at topographical
Yeah.
information. There is so much that can be underneath the soil
Right.
below there, tunnels and that. This comes into this whole question that me and you have talked about before about dumbs, right?
Oh yeah.
Right? The underground railroads and military bases all through the U.S. The Nazis had a whole whack of them. So the Russians, Germans, there's a whole bunch of them. Even the Chinese, huge amounts of underground areas. Satellites can't see them below that, but there's huge structures underneath there. So why don't you think that ancient civilizations might have done the same thing? And there was talks about this in Turkey, all through Eastern Europe. They're finding these huge areas of underground civilization bunkers that were underground. This is going back to Gobekli Tepe, many other places. So I'm just wondering about this part of this history. And like you just said, is that I think that this is a restart, a rekindling of something, and somebody out there might be stopping the information in history that we're repeating again. What do you think?
Yeah, well, first I want to give a shout out. We had Michelle Millins over on one of the Facebook pages. I tried to find her while you were talking, I couldn't find her. But we have Michelle Pratt on YouTube from Australia. She says, maybe their bones turn into gold nuggets or gems. And then she said, good day. But your question is, and you know what I'm going to answer you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I am even of the belief. Now we don't get a lot of information, but just by what we've seen, what has happened in Egypt with the pyramids,
Mhm.
Stonehenge, the way it's set up, and it directly relates to some of the stars and astrology. I think we were an advanced civilization before. I really, really do. I think that the angels that they possibly can be talking about, the gods, all that stuff, excuse me, even some of the hieroglyphics, that it definitely more than likely could have been extraterrestrials. There's
Right.
even been some theories, and some people have got a little deeper into the pyramids with permission, and it looks like they've had things like batteries and electricity. You look at the Black Sea, you look at it from above the earth, it looks like this giant black scar, like something blew up majorly over there. There's still huge amounts of radiation.
Mhm.
um so to me, they're, and they do this always, and I say they, we don't have to name them, but this has been going on potentially from some of the history I've looked at with all this stuff since 1000 AD and probably before this. There's always been somebody that wants a bid for power, wants to run things, is patient, doesn't matter if it takes centuries and centuries and centuries, they will get what they want. But what they do, and it's a little trick of it, is we lost you there, Dell, you froze there, now you're back, is
Okay.
what they do is they erase history, and they do it very subtly, and then they keep adding a little bit more, changing the story. It only takes about 2 to 3 generations, and like you said before, I forget, you're going to tell me probably who did this quote, but it's true. The more that you tell a lie, eventually it becomes the truth,
Yeah,
right?
Joseph Goebbels and Edward Bernays, his nephew, there did the same thing there.
I don't
Was
know if
that
I answered it, but Michelle Pratt says, or maybe we turn to dust, hence why we don't find remains, meaning of these mythical creatures. I don't know, Michelle, because again, you could be right. Dell and I have talked about this, like why we don't find Bigfoot
Mhm.
remains, why we don't find whatever. He's got a theory about it versus
Mhm.
I do. I think they're interdimensional. Or she says, we are the eighth group to inhabit the earth, question mark. And I have to agree with you. I think that we haven't been here that long. I think the only thing I have to agree with 100%, we see this all over too, and I know you and I talk about it a lot, is when you can't learn from history from the past, you are destined to keep recreating and enacting
Repeating?
the same mistakes over and over.
That Yeah, that's very true, and that's the scary thing. This has been talked about many times through history, and a lot of history professors and stuff like that
Mhm.
is by blocking the past and hiding the history, you repeat it. And whether or not this is a sinister cabalish sort of thing, you have to wonder. But usually, a lot of things is that usually by hiding the past, that you don't learn from it. There is that you get to go in, people that are in power get to go in, uh, manipulate the present, and
Yeah.
that's a big thing there. And I don't know. It's just it's a really interesting topic there about why there's so much stories about all these magical things that happen there. You can say that everybody across all the continents that weren't connected all talked about the same mythical creatures. Like if you look in China, South America, uh, Australia, Europe, and that
Mhm.
there's talks of similar dragons,
Yeah.
little
Culture.
people, genies, magic creatures, and so you have to think, why would all this history be there that they talk about the same thing when they were not visually, they could not connect by a phone or something like that, right? That they would actually share these stories. I don't know. There's you can put this part out there is that, oh, well, it was one person or one group that went and shared these stories and everybody adopted them, but that doesn't seem the
Not saying-
same. Telephone doesn't work that way. You know the game telephone,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And so if the game telephone that worked, that it would actually work that way, then the stories would be totally different and totally changed.
Or I was going to add one more thing to the pyramids. Okay, so we've got the
Yeah.
pyramid in Egypt. There are other pyramids very similar to what was going on in Egypt around the world that we don't hear so much about. But more interestingly enough, there are other planets that supposedly astronomers have caught. I've seen some of the images of what look like pyramidal structures on other planets like Mars and what have you. So why are they there? How did they get there?
Yeah, I don't know. It seems really interesting. This is why I love this so much. Is that uh, I don't agree with everything that Zachariah Sitchin has said, but I think there's a little bit of truth. I think there's a little bit of truth in all ancient history
Mhm.
and stories, right?
Yeah.
And I think there is something a little bit more than the people or the population actually acknowledges. Like I think I was looking at a study there is that basically about 74% of the world's population, that's out of the 7.7 billion people
Yeah.
there, believe in some type of religion. But
Mhm.
the thing is, so is that of all religions, they all has a story of some sort of mythical, magical creatures, some event that sort of happened, right? And now we're into June. We got was another 20 days or less than 20 days left, and we're supposed to have the big reveal about UFO
Well,
UAP
I'm going to read this
disclosure.
here, what Michelle said. I was trying to read it. Now I get what she's saying. She put Tuesday Lobsang Rampa. That sounds like the last name. Says spoke and wrote of hidden caves which have ancient technology there.
Mhm.
So this was rolling into what you were saying. So we're supposed to have this big reveal
Mhm.
June 25th. But that's one other thing I did want to add. As much as they try to hide stuff, it still comes to the surface, especially with everybody having a camera, everybody having video capability. Because I keep thinking, speaking about these little people, there was a pretty cool. She said it was a Tibetan monk she was referring to. Michelle said there was a really cool video on Nuke's Top Five. Sounds like probably off of a reserve by the accent. It's up in northern Alberta, Canada, and you've seen it every time they flash the flashlight, you see this little, it's not very clear, but it pops out and then it goes, and then it pops out and then it goes, and it's just this little tiny thing. Or people don't believe me, I know we shared this with Varla the last time, Varla Ventura, when she was on, she hadn't
Yeah.
seen this, about the gnomes. There are videos out there, and they aren't faked. They could be, but they're well done if they're faked, of actual gnomes moving about. Some one had a knife. There's one in the garden gnome,
Mhm.
really poor quality, but nobody's been able to debunk it. So, how does that happen?
Yeah, that's sort of weird. There was a show channel I was watching there. I think it's ancient Israel or ancient Arab or something like
Mhm.
that. Really interesting channel there, and it was talking about the jinn,
Oh,
and
and yeah. Hmm.
the thing is, so is that um, the part about it was sort of interesting. He says that we live in a 3D world,
Hmm.
right? And if you're looking at it, this is sort of really interesting about how this sort of can manifest or be around here. And this goes into spirituality, religion, and stuff like that
Hmm.
with other entities that are not us, right? Human beings, right?
Yeah.
And it says, so maybe they live in the 4D or the 5D dimensional world. They
Hmm.
can come and interact in through here. It's, we can't go above
Hmm.
because we can't exist this way, but they can look down below. It's like us looking at a 2D world, a piece of paper. We can see that, but anybody that's in a 2D world, as you're poking through, you see the thickness of of the finger coming through. It could be bigger or smaller than that, and we don't really understand what the 4D 5D is as they're poking in.
Hmm.
And a part to this part there is that um, if you look into the part of spirituality and with if religion, that is that they say part of it is that God made us in His image and made us special and stuff like that. These other things exist in their own thing. They're jealous of how humanity is. Okay, so but they can also move faster than the wind. They can move through different things that we can't do ourselves, right? And so yeah, there's I think there's things that are out there and we just don't understand them yet. We don't, and maybe some people are having interactions with them, whatever cost is costing them. But the thing is was that I think there's a lot more out there than what we actually
Oh,
really know,
absolutely. Absolutely.
right?
And especially if things are interdimensional, since we're talking about dimensions here, if they really are interdimensional, like we've had this conversation many times off the air rather than a few times on the air
Hmm.
about Bigfoot, like where are their bodies? And then you had a point about that apparently there was a certain type of elephant burial ground that had never been found and all of a sudden it was discovered. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not going to do it justice, so you can explain more about it, but
Yeah, well, that was actually in a book, and I'd have to go and look up. I can't do it right now because I'm using my phone here to do this outdoor show. But yeah, they were wondering why they couldn't find elephant bones anywhere,
yeah.
and there's a part of their elephants never forget,
Hmm.
right? And but elephants would go to this certain area, and that's where they when they were older, that's where or sick, that's where they would go to die. And
Right.
people were wondering why we don't find, because a huge beast like this, a huge
Hmm.
mammal, why wouldn't you find elephant bones all over the place? Like, and they would like a salmon travels back up to go and spawn
Yeah.
and do this, but why wouldn't you find these elephant bones? And
Mhm.
now they found it also too. There is that they found huge areas of mammoth bones and stuff like that. Now, whether or not
Mhm.
all these mammoths congregated during a celestial event that happened that wiped out a whole bunch of things, or is this was a graveyard that where they always came back to go and lay down, like how we have graveyards here in
Mhm.
in our world, right?
Yeah.
You buy a plot and you get buried there.
Mhm.
Hopefully, it says all I want to be is cremated and thrown on the lake. That's all
Yeah,
I want.
both of us, we know pretty well. That's pretty morbid, but we know that we don't want to become worm food. We want to be cremated and put in a beautiful place. Yes.
Yeah,
Hmm.
but yeah, that's lots of things. Well, it's really sort of sad that my guest sort of jumped out, but the other part though is you're actually really glad that my significant other there jumped onto the.
Saved my butt last night too. That's the good thing about it, right? That we can
Yeah.
have these. Only thing is, you're nice and cool outside. It is so warm in here. I shouldn't
Right.
complain because
I told you you could have came down and sat on the chair.
I know, but we didn't know if your guest was going to show up. And then I would have had to run upstairs and then go the StreamYard link I would have had, but then I would have had to bug poor Joe. We should give Joe a shout out to Joe Montaldo, the owner of UPRN and our producer. He does all the hard work. We just get to sit and talk. He makes us look good. So we always like to give him a shout out. Plus, he's got lots of awesome shows on the network himself, UFO Undercover. He's got news, I think news on the flip side. I think he's got a whole bunch of them. He's got the Gray Zone Uncensored, and they're all awesome shows.
So
So
we're gonna say is that we're also thinking about me and Lord doing a show that might be on a weekend time, and maybe doing it out in a boat, doing it outdoors, doing it
we're
somewhere.
talking. We're talking.
Just we're talking about that, and that's part of the reason why I wanted to do this one outdoors, to see how it sort of worked out there, whether the sound
Yeah.
quality was good and stuff like that. I
Yeah.
think it's not too bad, and like you get to see a little bit of the outdoors and nature.
No, the backyard's okay, but it'll be like I say. But the other thing I've said to Del, we live in Canada. We forgot to mention that, but we do. And where we live is a beautiful place at Thunder Bay. And we can go anywhere from the winter to minus 55 with the wind chill. There's no difference Celsius or Fahrenheit. And then all the way up to with the humidity, sometimes 105 to even above. So we're hardy people. But the thing is that winter or summer is short here. We've been lucky this year. Summer started, gosh, warm temperatures almost at the end of March, beginning of April, which was unheard of. So I got to ask you, this just popped in my head. So your family has this beautiful, we call it a camp, and it's the lake is one of the freshest, cleanest lakes. It's in the area that we live in. It's in a basin. So the weather could be storming here. We drive 15 minutes later, 15, 20 minutes later, it could be sunny and beautiful. But my whole point is we are in the middle of the bush. There's a lot of places around us and everything else. But do you ever wonder, like, especially with us talking about this and putting some energy, if you will, into it, what we might actually encounter out there, especially this summer?
Well, this is an interesting point that you brought up there, is because there is actually a newspaper article of, I think it's in the 1970s, of UFOs being seen over the lake that's called Oliver Lake. It's out in
Mhm.
South Gillies. It's about 20 minutes outside of Thunder Bay, and
Yeah.
accounts of UFO activity out there where people were noticing not
Mm.
just lights but actual ships. And there's parts about that. And I've said this many times on here, and I've told you also as well, is that it's sort of weird. Is that as you go out there, it's sort of you enter this sort of new energy, and it feels like when you go out there, you feel refreshed, alive. There's so much, like it just it's not, I would say, cleansing, but energetic, that you feel so great.
I know what I say. It's like going to a whole different world.
Yeah,
It really is. We call it Dell's Road, but there's only about 5 camps. There's a public beach at the end of the road,
yeah.
and then you turn up and you drive up to the camp. It's not that far, and but literally, as soon as you turn and get past the public beach, it is like going to a different planet, and there's no way to describe it. Just when you because everybody can feel energy. You don't have to be in woo woo la la land, as I call it, being in the astral, if you will. You really can feel that. So, what I was even thinking though, too, when I was going there with that about the UFOs and what have you, is I wonder what will happen with the little people, because I'd be interested in hearing did your guest that was supposed to be on, did they have the myth that you can't whistle in the woods? Because we've heard that, right? But a lot of people, lot of people from different reserves haven't had that. So, what was his thoughts on that?
Well, we didn't get too far into that. He just said that you don't upset them. That was, and then he says, "But I have a lot of stories about this," and that's why I
Mhm.
was hoping that he would continue on with the conversation, because you got to understand it was also 3 o'clock in the morning, and I also needed to go to sleep as well, so I couldn't entertain. I wish I would have had my phone out there and just recorded the whole thing. I could probably get a whole show there, unscripted. Just there, he says, "I'm just going to record this whole thing and just tell Joe I'm uploading this video in the
Yeah.
middle of the nighttime."
Well, what I don't think people understand, okay, so think about this because I don't know why I'm focusing on this. I keep almost feeling like something's going to happen while we're at camp. Not bad, not scary, like that we're going to see something because there's very little internet on off of Dell's Road where Dell's family's camp is. But I don't think people realize, I guess if maybe you live out in the country or away from a lot of street lights and whatever, you might at nighttime, but
Mhm.
how unearthly black it is when the lights are out,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's one thing there. Yeah, when there's no moon, when it's moon and you get a full moon out there at 2 o'clock in the morning, it's
Mhm.
almost like daylight because
Yeah.
there is no extra light from, well, except from the camps that are out there. But
Mhm.
you can like see the stitching in your shoes as you're walking around in a full moon. But yeah, when there's like a new moon, when there's no moon, yeah, it goes black like
You
black
can
like
really see your
black.
hand in front of your face.
Yeah.
So like and the same thing, I've never seen this, knock on wood, but you've told me there's bears out there and
Yep.
wolves and all kinds of stuff like that.
Yep.
So there is an outhouse at the camp that's actually not that bad considering that most outhouses are disgusting. It isn't.
It's a
But
two seater. It's a two seater, so you
yeah,
can
you
have a
should tell.
friend.
I remember when you, because I've known your family my whole life, but your dad, why did your dad want that again? There's actually two toilet seats, no partition inside of this outhouse. And why
Yeah.
don't?
Well, it's just so if you're lonely or scared, you can always bring your friend and you can poop together.
Yes. Because well no, but I could see why, like you don't want to go out if you don't at night, especially if you have an active imagination,
Yeah.
because you have to go out. The
It's only
security,
10 feet from the camp, or 15 feet.
and I
So
literally just heard in my mind, nobody can hear you scream.
that's true. Yeah.
Well, we'll see. Well, we could still take video because you never know. Like now that we've talked about
Hey,
this.
wouldn't it be good if we'll do a show, me and you in the outhouse? We can be sitting down.
And like you say, if somebody's never been out to the camp and they go to use this outhouse, like it looks like a bathroom inside. Like there's flooring, there's all kinds of
Hey, you
stuff.
got a
Right.
heater in there. You got
But
lights.
seats, it's like this long piece of like it's like a bench. Like it's really actually nice. It's not like your typical outhouse. And there's one toilet seat and then there's another. And how many people have actually asked you why are there two toilet seats in the
I think I
outhouse?
only did it once. That
Yeah.
with an old girlfriend there. We both
Yeah.
met at the same time. But
Yeah.
yeah, but it's a little bit weird. It almost reminds me of those Roman uh, uh,
Bathhouses.
bathhouse bathrooms there, where they had all the seats all around in a square,
Yeah.
and then you have the guy with the brush there to go in, rub
Oh,
you down afterwards. But no, this is different. We got toilet paper. We're in the 21st century here.
could you imagine having that job? Could you imagine having that job? That would just be like, just think about it. Back in the olden days, there was that TV show with Mike Rowe, the
Yeah,
world's messiest, most
yeah,
terrible plastic jobs.
yeah,
Can you imagine if you did that show thousands of years ago, how bad that would have been?
yeah. But then also you got the sauna there. You can go and sweat everything out, and then you got the lake to jump in, and
Yeah.
there's so much other great things out there. And I told the story before there about how I found this, and we talked about this last night, and how this camp sort of uh, miraculously appeared. And I want to say that it was not a coincidence, but it was sort of like I
Design.
can't. It's sort of magical that it happened that way,
I think
and then everything like that. The job I was working there for the Ministry of Environment, and also I was building houses, and everything sort of fell into line. How I designed the whole thing, and working for my buddy's dad that was building houses, and they all came together at the same time. We built the main camp in basically a week, 2 stories, like a seven into the
house.
cliff, and yeah, it was. I don't know. Sometimes things fall into
Well, I
place.
was just saying that on I did a podcast before this, and it was over in Scotland, but it was with a whole bunch of people. I'm a tribunal judge at the International Tribunal, and there's a bunch of us, and two of the judges have a podcast, Dr. Rima Lebo and Ralph Ifusatola. I'm hoping to have them on my show. But the reason why I mentioned this was part of my comment I made tonight, was that if you have enough forethought, if you're actually able to look back like you just did there, and I gave an example too, when you look back, and I think it depends on whether you're a glass half full or a glass half empty type of person, that you can see why things happen the way they do. Maybe not in the moment, but afterwards, and appreciate why they happen. And sometimes even bad things, like if you lost somebody or lost a job or something, then when you look back, you can kind of see how everything all falls into place and why it needed to happen that way.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay, well, we're just after the 10 o'clock mark here, and I'm starting to get nailed by mosquitoes now as the sun's
Forgot to bring the
slowly
bug
setting.
trapper out. You forgot to
As
bring the
this
bug trapper.
as the sun is slowly setting behind me here. It's still
Yeah.
a little bit light out, but way over there you can see a little bit yellowish as it's going down.
Mhm.
And I didn't put any bug dope on there tonight. So I Laura, tell them where they can go and find you
Okay.
and all that
You
stuff.
guys can get a hold of me on facebook.com/the Angel Rock. I do have a website that I never mentioned. It's on Wix, but it is basically the Angel Rock. You can find it that way. People have been finding it. I keep getting notified on my app. I have two groups on Facebook, Paranormal University for all things paranormal. And then I have the Angel Rocker Tribe for all things esoteric, bit of spirituality, energy, power of the mind. And when I mentioned to find me on facebook.com/Angel Rock, that's like to book a reading, maybe a healing session. I also do mentoring. I'm also on many, many different podcasts. But next Monday, I want to mention, I've had him on the show before. Michael Roser's coming on, and we are going to be talking about all kinds of things with this disclosure that's coming up. He works very closely with Third Phase of Moon, who's very popular on YouTube. I introduced Michael to Joe, and Joe's had him on his show quite a few times on UFO Undercover. And I'm going to be on Michael's show, Dark Hour Paranormal, actually this Thursday. So that's who's coming up. Thanks for having me with you, Del. It's always fun to do this with you.
Yes, and next week on Tuesday for
Yes,
my
yes.
hour there, we got
Yeah.
Varla Ventura again there coming back on. This is gonna complete. Well, I don't want to say complete because I want to have her on more than that, but this is gonna finish our four solstice
Mhm.
equinox sort of series there, and I always love talking to her. So do you,
Yes.
and I'm really excited about that. So tune in next Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern on The Delicious Recipe, and you'll have Varla Ventura and Laura Lee
Yeah.
both joining me. It'll be a sandwich that every guy should love.
Bye, everybody. We'll see you Friday. As far as I know, we're on the central list with Joe for the host chat. So we'll see you then.
Yes. Take it away, Joe.
Is he there? Might have to text him.
Well, he said 10 minutes
Or
after.
we could let Michelle, and there was the two Michelles that were there. I don't know if Michelle Pratt's still there too, because she was joining in the
Yeah.
conversation with you.
Okay, well, do that and say their messages while we were waiting for them. I just got to run inside really quick. So say what the messages were.
From Michelle?
Yeah, all that. Yep.
Oh yeah, I did. Okay, if you're running inside, I guess I'm hosting till Joe comes back, and we'll see him. He'll start messing around with things on here, and then we'll know it's him. So yeah, and in case you guys didn't know, if you're hearing this on the replay, don't forget to tune in on Mondays here on United Public Radio, because we have our paranormal host chat, and that goes from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, otherwise 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Central. And then we've got great shows here in New Pyram. We've got a show practically for everybody, every interest you could possibly think of. And then I know on Fridays, like I mentioned, we usually have the Centralist, so you can join us on there as well. That's from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Central, and from 10 p.m. to midnight Eastern. And we talk about all kinds of things having to do with the politics and what have you. Do I hear you there, Joe, in the background? I think I do. I don't see you though. I'm waiting. We'll see. Nope. I see. Let's see. We'll see if he joined us. Nope. Thank you, Michelle. Michelle sent us all these peace sign, the world, the Australian flag. I haven't got my glasses on, Michelle. Looks like a fairy. That's pretty cool. Thank you. So we will wait and see. If not, we'll see if the Dal comes back here. He will come back, and then we'll text Joe because he told us to go till about this time tonight. So if we're quiet, he won't hear any noise, Joe. And then he'll show up mysterious. He just kind of shows up in the background, and then he starts moving things around, and then you know he's there. So, oh, what do I see in there? Out of the cage. Oh, that's what Dal changed his name to. Out of the cage. You probably have heard that joke in here as well with Joe about poor Canadian men. They end up in cages that their spouses, such as myself, that we beat them. Our
That's
spouses. We
right.
don't.
Lock
There he
them
is.
bitches down,
I knew
man.
he was here. I knew he'd be there.
I told y'all quarter after.
Yeah. Well, he said 10 after. He had to go for a quick bathroom break. Actually, Michelle Pratt, she's awesome. She's from Australia. She said, thanks for interesting topics to listen to. So he
Yeah,
said,
they cool like
quick
that.
after.
And knowing next time there, maybe we'll have a bonfire going in the background there with some little outdoor ambience.
Oh yeah. Hey, Dal, look, watch the crazy Americans. Wait, where's it at? See that? See this? 21 rounds. See that? 21 rounds. Let me show you something, baby. Yeah. This is why it's great to be an American right here. There you go, baby. Look at that. Now that's a clip. Look at vision.
We can't even have anything like
Look at that clip, Dal. It's 40 rounds, baby.
There you go.
You know what I forgot to tell
150 grains of 40 rounds each. Boy,
yeah,
no,
what's great about that, Joe, is that I can do the same thing too, but it's just not legal.
But it's legal here. It's actually legal here.
I can build a dirty bomb and put it off there, and there's lots of things. I love guns. Don't get me wrong. I love guns, bombs.
Knives. I just love to shoot them. Knives, I don't want to shoot them at people. I just like to shoot them. It's this 40 round. This 40 rounder's got 4 different types of rounds in it. Yeah. It's got 124s and 147 grains in it. My gun don't like 115s for some reason. Okay, it's a little finicky when it comes to that.
Lord knows a little bit about this, but